Awesome.
All right, we're recording.
All right, I guess we'll get started then. Welcome to the HubSpot User Group meeting for Contract Manufacturing East Coast. Now, we have an exciting announcement. At least I'm excited about this announcement. We were, for a few years, I don't want to say forced, but suggested to use East Coast for our user group, and they just agreed to be like, all right, you don't have to use East Coast anymore. It's not really relevant. There's not a West Coast one. And they're all virtual anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So we are now just HubSpot User Group Contract Manufacturing. All right, we'll get rolling right into the material here. First, we will do some intros. I am Josh, Chief Revenue Officer and Partner at Protocol 80, also HubSpot User Group Leader here. I've been a HubSpot User Group Leader for 7 years, I think. Started with the Rochester HubSpot User Group, which Zach Hushin is here, and he now leads the Rochester one. So the crew from Rochester can maybe chat with Zach while we're on here. Speaker at FabTech, speaker at Inbound. I have a dog, like to bike, run, and do all that fun stuff. So that's me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Zach. I am a solutions developer here at Protocol 80. I work on the revenue operations team, and most of my day is CRM administration. It's kind of an umbrella for a lot of what I do. I like to get in the weeds. I like to get under the hood a little bit in HubSpot. When I'm not at work, I love music, I love cooking, and anything and everything nerdy. Video games, card games, everything in between.
Zach makes a super salsa.
Thank you.
And hello, everyone. My name is Vicky Sunny. I am also a HubSpot solutions developer, also HubSpot certified trainer, and have been working with HubSpot in some way, shape, or form for about the last 10 years. Outside of work, my family consists of my husband, Mike, and our son, James. I enjoy playing volleyball, golfing, and gardening. And when we're not watching James's sporting events, we're cheering on the Chiefs. No judgment, please.
All right, so what we're going to talk about today is a way or a solution that we've come up with to help streamline those meetings that are happening in person, not behind one of these Google Meets or Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Candidly, it does work for those solutions as well, but what we solved for was specifically those people that are driving to facilities, having in-person meetings and conversations. So this is actually part of a 10K pitch that SuperIt and AskElephant had about a month ago, and I have a giant check here to prove that we were the winners. It's too big to even show on the screen, but we won that, right? So I want to make that clear that we won, and we're super excited and happy about that, but we also don't want this to be just a pitch. We want you to see that there is a solution that's possible to help your field teams use CRMs better, make it effortless, and to help drive adoption. So what we have here is what we solved for, but you can take these elements potentially and understand how you could organize this for your teams. So we work almost entirely in the industrial space, manufacturing, contract manufacturers, OEMs, equipment, machinery, distributors, all sorts. Almost all of our clients have some sort of person that's in the field. They're behind the wheel, having meetings at facilities, having that FaceTime. Sometimes it's old school golf course. Sometimes it's actually at a manufacturing facility. Consistently, and this is true over the, I don't know, 15, 16 plus years I've been working with manufacturers, CRM usage has been a challenge. They don't even use it. I've had so many conversations and talking about HubSpot and talking about CRM where they're almost giving up on asking their outside people to even use it. They have that general sense of, well, we know they're not going to use it, so we're not even going to ask them anymore. They've been doing things this way for 20 years and they've been fine, so we're not going to kind of press our luck with this. When we're thinking about processes and how this is impacting everything, that's the first step of the process is getting that activity and logging it in the CRM so that everyone else that's part of that process has the information that they need to keep progressing things further. They have the details on the conversation, they have the concerns, the excitement, the details that the customers are having in those in-person meetings. They need that information in the CRM, as opposed to playing the telephone game with those outside reps that are translating what they heard in the meeting to the other people on the inside. So when we dive into that problem a little bit, essentially these people that are having these in-person meetings, CRM usage is just a hassle. They're not being held accountable to use it. And I get it. Like, if you're going in and out of facility, you're driving, you're at in-person meetings, you're not always having that priority top of mind. It is tricky. It's an additional thing that you have to do. I get that. The other thing, or the other factor that we see is, yes, a lot of these people are legacy reps that have been doing things this way for a long time, and they're probably pretty good at it. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do things. And then the other thing that we want to take into consideration as part of this problem is that these in-person meetings, they don't necessarily follow a pure agenda like you might have in a virtual meeting where you're going through topic by topic. Sometimes they're going to. But inevitably, other things are going to come up as part of those conversations that the reps aren't going to catch. So that's the first component of that. You have then these inside people that are supporting them. They're inside reps that are maybe creating the quotes or communicating with the customers. And there's a lack of context and a lack of like the full conversation that they're getting. Oftentimes they're having reps that are texting them. They're picking up the phone and maybe calling their inside people. Maybe they're emailing. And sometimes they are even using notes in a CRM, but I've seen some of the notes and they're awful, just bad. And sometimes when you take notes, and even if it is something that records everything and has a transcript of everything, looking at a giant field of notes without any sort of segmentation and understanding of like where to look, what's important, that's really difficult as well. So it's just causing a lot of frustration. And these are people that are expected to turn information around quickly. The outside people want those quotes, the customers want those quotes. So ultimately is causing customer frustration. And then when we think about from the management perspective, or these organizations that are putting sales processes in place, the outside reps are having difficulty following those processes. And the one thing that I'll say is, it's not because they are just like, I'm just not following this process because I'm me and I don't want to. It's like sometimes they don't know the process, or sometimes it's just a little tricky. But anytime that they aren't necessarily following the processes, everything else that is impacted by that. Forecasting is not necessarily on track. They don't know what's actually happening as part of those meetings. And then as we bring new people in, younger people that are more reliant on technology, and you have this tribal knowledge of these people that are the outside reps that have just done things for 20 years that way. How do you scale? Like, how do you bring new people in to train them and have them understand what the processes are so that they can sell as effectively as those people that have those established relationships? So that's why we came up with a solution for the 10K pitch, and something I have been super excited to share with people that I've had these past conversations with about, like, well, how do we do this? How do we get our outside people to use it? Zach and Vicky are going to dive into the details about this, but at a really zoomed out level, AskElephant is taking notes for those people through recordings. Agents run those notes and then do magic things after. Zach will explain the magic. HubSpot, I'll mention this, but this is a HubSpot user group. This also works for Salesforce. Will update automatically and instantly, and the information will be there. So like the outside reps are now using the CRM without even realizing they're using the CRM. And then SuperID is going to provide in-app guidance and context for those people that are on the inside doing this. And I don't know if it's more importantly or just as importantly, people that need to understand who's following the processes and coach their teams to just ultimately get better, they're going to get reports from Superid. So I'm going to hand this over to Zach to start diving into the details. We will have some time for Q&A at the end. And I will note, save up really, really difficult questions about AskElephant, because James is here from AskElephant and he would love to field difficult questions, and then we'll take all the easy slow ball questions.
Thanks, Josh. So yeah, let's unpack how the AskElephant component of this is going to work. So just to be clear, there's a lot of different note-taking apps that are similar to AskElephant. There may be some that have this capability. We'll save you a little bit of research here. This is one that we can confirm top to bottom does everything that we list in this component of this solution. So phase one, we're using AskElephant as an example, but it may be something that is customizable with an existing note-taking app that you're using or something that you're looking into already. So for our solution, we're using AskElephant. So phase one, we have these field reps that are doing in-person meetings. Like Josh said, they're traveling, they're going to facilities, whether it's for sales reasons or service reasons or any combination of those. They may be having sales and service conversations. They may be having different kinds of sales conversations that you're supposed to be tracking separately in your CRM. In either case, they're on the go. It's challenging for them to adhere to all these sales processes, and this solution makes that a lot easier. So the idea is, when they're having these meetings, they're going to be pulling out the AskElephant app, and they're going to be recording these meetings. The mobile app's going to record those conversations. It's going to use AI to process them, and then it's going to take that data, use the AI to parse it however you've customized, and then send it through to your CRM so that it's going to be consistent. It's going to be readable. Everybody's going to be on the same page, and it's going to be able to capture any opportunities that may be discussed outside of what the meeting was intended for. So let's take a look at what AskElephant is. So it's an AI-powered note-taking and meeting recording platform. So it does both. In this case, we're using the recording functionality primarily, but it has transcript functionality built into it as well, so that it can also use that for some of this automation that we're going to be discussing. From there, there's also the custom workflows. So if you're using HubSpot already, you're familiar with the term workflows, and that's their automation tool. So it's able to be designed in a way that it takes that data, it can create meeting notes from it, it can pull insights, it can analyze your discussions, and then it can even push data into your CRM, in this case, HubSpot. So here's a little bit of what the AskElephant app looks like. So on the field rep side, it's as simple as pulling open the app. And by this point, you'll have connected your CRM to AskElephant. So when it comes time to actually attach contacts to this, you can actually pull that up directly in the app as you're recording, and it doesn't interfere with the performance at all. Once the meeting is complete, it's going to generate a meeting in AskElephant. And as we can see here, there's a lot of different UI elements, but I think for our solution, most of this isn't going to be relevant outside of the configuration side. The idea is to make this as seamless as possible. So as you can see here, there's a show transcript button that's going to be available, and the recording is also going to be available directly within the AskElephant app. And then here close to the bottom left corner, you can see the workflows that are running. So we have 3 separate ones that are running in this example, and they are doing different things with the same transcript. So they can be trained in a way where they're looking for different things and creating different records and updating different properties based on what they're supposed to be doing. So this is what the workflow tool looks like, and it's going to look very familiar if you've used HubSpot workflows. You're still building out that timeline where, if this happens, then do all of these things. So in this case, we're using the new meeting trigger. So every time a meeting happens, every time a new meeting is created, which it will be created using this app, it's going to automatically run this workflow for those meetings. It can also be customized. There's a lot of filters you can use to narrow it down. So in this case, we've specified our RevOps team so that the rest of our team that's using AskElephant they're not getting interference here. It's not creating records for them. It's just the people that it's going to be relevant to. So your field reps, sales, service, whoever this is going to need to run for, it can be customized for that. And then it leads into the HubSpot agent. And this is kind of the bread and butter of what this solution does. So this is an AI-powered, it latches onto AskElephant's AI tools. and it parses your transcript, it parses your meeting information, and then it's able to accept commands using prompting. And you can kind of see that here on this window. There is a way to maximize it, and that's how I prefer to operate. But the idea is if you've used ChatGPT, Claude, any of these mainstream AI tools, it's going to be virtually identical, except with the benefit of being able to take in the data automatically from your meeting, and then it's automatically going to be able to connect to your CRM to say if you want to create a deal, if you want to add a note, if you want to update a property, it's able to accept those commands using plain language in the same way that a lot of these tools accept. And so the default model that we're using for this solution is Claude, but it does all of the big names for the most part. It does Llama, Claude, GPT, and different variations of each of those. So if you have a preferred model that you like, you can customize it for that. So if you haven't built a prompt, or if you're not super familiar with how these kinds of prompts would be built out, they're most successful when you give them explicit instructions. Things like formatting specifications. If you're creating a note and you want it to be the same output every time, it needs to know exactly how you want that to be. Guardrails are excellent to add as well. So not just what you want it to do, but explicitly what you want it not to do. So if you're building this out, you're testing it, and you're seeing certain things start to happen, you can tell it, do not do this, and then it won't do that moving forward. And then anything else where more detail is possible. So if you're editing a property or anything where you can give it more information, it is beneficial to give it as much detail as you can. AI is smart, but it needs to know exactly explicitly what you're doing. If you were telling it to make you a peanut butter sandwich, you need to tell it, take the lid off the peanut butter first. And here's an example of one of our guardrails. So in this case, we're using it to deduplicate first. So in the case where it has a deal associated with that company already in your CRM, it's able to go and parse that deal, any information that you want to tell it to look at to try to determine, is this existing deal related to this sales call that is currently happening? And if so, don't create a new one, just update that existing deal. And you're able to add those parameters, and it works for the tickets as well. So this way, you're not adding a bunch of duplicate records for every meeting that's coming in. It's able to use that intelligence to update your CRM in a way that is organic and makes sense the same way that a person would. So just a couple of tips. The HubSpot agent can be configured to output information in the AskElephant meeting. So in this screenshot, it's kind of hard to tell from the small text, but essentially it's saying what it is doing every step of the process. So every time it adds a note, every time it looks for a deal, our prompt was configured in a way where it is spitting that data out into AskElephant. So if you're ever troubleshooting, you run into an issue where something wrong happened, you can go in here and see exactly step by step what it did, and then find out what's going wrong in that process. So if you're familiar with the HubSpot API, that might help with some of the technical troubleshooting, but it's not necessary for most of what you're going to be doing. And then AskElephant's chat can even help you build a better prompt. You can take your entire prompt that you've constructed so far, and you can tell it what you want to do. In this screenshot, it's saying, I'd like this prompt to create a note on contact records. And then not only will it be able to give you feedback when you hit enter and it runs that prompt, but you can see here highlighted in green that it will actually give you feedback on better ways to ask that question to get better results. And all you have to do is copy it, and it'll tell you exactly where to add it in. So if you have different structured sections there, like a guardrail section or an output section like ours does, it can tell you where that is supposed to go in a way to get the output you're hoping for. And then here we have an example of one of the outputs in the HubSpot CRM. So on the left side, we can see that this is a deal in this case, but it was able to determine based on the context of the conversation that this deal was about a capital device. So in this case, we use kind of a capital versus consumable thing on the sales side. So capital being like, equipment, machines, and then consumable being things that may go into those machines, things like lubrication, things like belts, etc., other accessories. And it's able to use that intelligence to make that determination pretty well with even broader instructions, but you can give it more specific instructions. So it also is able to capture the products that were discussed in that. So in this case, the deal name is about that Twin Force Pro Dry 75 horsepower compressor. and you can see that in the deal name as well. But it's able to capture any other products that are named in there. And you can ask it to use specific product names. You can ask it to keep an eye out for generic ones like belts, lubrication, etc. And then we have this standardized note here. So we were able to use essentially a copied and paste a format of exactly what we want that note to look like. And with some tweaks, we got things like bolding, we have a bulleted list. Everything is going to be organized in a way that when that meeting recording comes through to HubSpot, the inside team, whether it's its own team or it's the same sales reps just in the office, it's going to be consistent, it's going to be readable, and it's going to have the exact information that they need every time. And so that brings us to the impact. So it works pretty much top down with the management structure. So the field reps aren't going to be burdened with additional work so that they can adhere to CRM processes that may be ever changing. Additionally, if anything, it really removes work. The inside teams have access to information from the field meetings that previously lacked visibility, whether it was due to inconsistency in what they're putting into the CRM, whether it's due to missing information that just wasn't put in the first place, or additional context that may have been discussed in the meeting just isn't reflected in the CRM. And then on the management side, they know exactly what data is coming into the CRM. They know that everybody should have the tools that they need to succeed in their roles. It's going to be a streamlined process, and then they can use that and leverage it for coaching purposes. So I'll pass that off to Vicky, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about the super side of this solution.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach. So like Zach mentioned, now we can go a little bit deeper into what information has actually passed into your CRM, whether that may be HubSpot or Salesforce. And then we'll chat a little bit more about what a platform called Supered can do now that we have that data in our system. So specifically, there are two features of Supered that we utilized in the solution. The first one is what they call process rules. And those process rules are effectively a way to deliver context, next steps, and documentation to your teams directly in HubSpot without actually having to leave the system. And the other tool is what they call process boards, which essentially give us a way to report on how well your teams are following processes that you have defined. So before we get too far into the weeds on Supered, what is Supered? Supered is essentially a platform that was created specifically to help with platform adoption and enablement for your teams. So it can, like I mentioned, deliver documentation, next steps, bring all that information into the system that your teams are already using. It's something that is implemented through a Chrome extension that they call the Sidekick. There are a lot of neat features and tools within Supered, but specifically the ones that we used for this solution were the process rules and the process boards. All right, so now we have an example here of the capital equipment agent that Zach had mentioned. In this particular case, the agent was built to look for specific conversations or cues related to capital equipment. So this deal was automatically generated based on the AskElephant agents. And we can see on the left sidebar that all of that information was pulling in automatically. So we can see properties being populated, products discussed, descriptions, all of this information is coming in automatically. And we can also see all of these structured notes that Zach mentioned. Why are these important? So basically what Supered allows us to do is capture or latch on to these property values or activities and specific terms within the CRM. So we can use this information to prompt Supered to deliver the right piece of information at the right time in the right context. So in the middle of this record, we see 3 examples of process rules. So in the back end of Supered, essentially a process rule is created based on logic, very similar to how you might create a list or a saved view in HubSpot if you're familiar with those tools. Once we have the logic set, we can tell Supered what to display based on any records that are meeting that criteria. So the first example we have here is a record that doesn't have a deal amount. So this particular process rule tells the rep that's going to work this deal that you need to have a process or need to have a deal amount entered to work this deal. Same scenario goes for the second warning there based on activities. So not only can Superd look at properties, but it can also look at associations and activities. So your note records, tasks, meetings, etc. It can latch onto all those activities, or if there aren't any of those activities, display the next steps to make sure that these deals are moving through your sales process. And the last example here is the selling guide, or sometimes we call it a battle card. So this can give you all of the specific details on this particular piece of equipment so that your team knows exactly all the information, maybe next steps or things to know when selling up against competitors. The sky is the limit really in terms of the content that you can create in these cards and guides. But ideally, all of this is being delivered to your team without anybody having to do anything in the background. And the second example here that we have is the service agent. So in this case, the service agent was looking for specific conversations related to troubleshooting or issues out in the field conversations. So this agent automatically created the ticket. And similarly to the deal, it automatically logged all of the information and properties on the left sidebar. We can see the products coming through, descriptions, issues, etc. And then it also has that same structured note logged in the center timeline. Then for the process rule in this example, we're doing a troubleshooting guide. So since AskElephant identified this specific product, we can give the instructions on exactly what to do to troubleshoot, maybe provide links to manuals or any other sort of documentation that can allow your team to quickly resolve this issue as fast as possible. Then moving along to the process boards. So historically speaking, it has been nearly impossible to be able to visualize or report on whether or not your teams are following the processes that you have set in place. So process boards change that. It's basically a dashboard that can be created in Superd that shows you the process rules that you have created and how well your team is doing over time at following those processes. So we can see in this example, our team had a lot to start off in August, but as it goes over time, our team members are starting to latch on to what they're doing. They know the next steps. And ideally, the goal is to get to 0 violations of our process rules here. So not only can the information be viewed in Superd, but it can also be viewed directly in HubSpot through the Sidekick extension. So in this example, we opened up the Sidekick, we went to our records that violate the process rules, and it gives us a window here that actually toggles through each record as you view it. So it will tell you exactly the process rules that are being violated and also the next steps on how to resolve the issues. So you can provide instant context on why you should be following this rule and how you actually resolve this issue. So very powerful to bring this all within HubSpot. And talking about the impact here in our phase 2, the inside sales teams and support teams are capturing information that they've probably never had access to historically. And Superd is able to automatically give them those next steps, their battle cards and troubleshooting guides without having to actually go search for that information. On the manager side of things, they have that visibility now in the process boards to be able to see who's doing what and maybe who's struggling so that they can focus their efforts there on training and coaching where needed. Then to bring it all together, overall, we use the AskElephant, HubSpot, and Superd combination to help resolve some of the issues and challenges that we've seen with those reps and people working in the field. We talked a lot about the different impacts or ways that the solution has impacted your internal teams, but ultimately we think that it's your customers who are getting a win, experiencing better customer service since your teams have all of the better improve their day-to-day flow. And lastly, and with field reps case. So as long as your meetings are being recorded with AskElephant or a similar solution, those agents can be built to pass the data that is important to your teams into your CRM. And once that data is in the CRM, Super can then be customized and built out to provide that in-app documentation and next steps so that your team ideally knows what to do, and you also have that visibility of whether or not they're doing it. And if you would like to learn more about this solution or any component of it, we'd love to chat. You can always follow the QR code or follow the link that we will include in the recap email today. We'll open it up for questions, mainly for James, hard questions for James.
I'm ready.
People can put those hard questions for James either in the chat, or they can come off mute and ask them themselves. But if they put them in chat, I'll volunteer to read them.
If nobody has questions, I will just surface some of the questions that I've already been asked, but I'll wait here a second before doing that.
I have a question. So since there's always that speed bump in the beginning of trying to use HubSpot, so we've created these three things together to help get past that issue. Are there any like common issues or speed bumps when you initiate this like program altogether, or is it pretty like fail proof for people to use?
I'll answer first, but anyone can chime in. Nothing is ever fail proof. I think that there's going to be things that are going to come up. One of the things, or one of the questions that I've gotten is like, hey, we're in the field, and sometimes the conversations that are happening in the field aren't necessarily appropriate to be recorded. Like, I get it. Sometimes when people know that things are being recorded, they'll hold off on some of those a little bit, and you can always pause the recording. But the other component is like, we already have reps that are recording these, so this is not new. So that's one of the hurdles, I guess, especially when you have a legacy sales team that hasn't been doing this a long time. One of the other elements would be the agents themselves, and James and Zach can chime in on this a little bit as well. Whenever producing or creating those agents, I would expect to have to iterate on them.
Yeah, absolutely. As I was building a lot of these out, we used kind of a template that the AskElephant team helped us with as kind of our baseline. But as far as making sure that all of the correct associations were being created, the conversational analysis was working as intended, there's some of that stuff that's not going to work like version 1.0. You're going to want to iterate on it. You're going to want to test it and get it to a point where you're seeing consistent results. And I think that's fair to say with like any AI tool, really.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll echo one piece there, that the way I like to think about it is if I hire somebody brand new and give them no feedback or coaching, I should expect the behavior to continue, and AI is the exact same. So like every time you build something, whether it's a workflow in AskElephant or even a chat prompt or a custom GPT, whatever it is you're building with AI, you're going to have to iterate, and you should fully expect to and know that it's going to get better over time, always.
Awesome. Annie, does that answer your question? Any other? I guess one of the other areas that I would say is not fail-proof is on the Super side. Sometimes you don't have the documentation to show in-app, and this kind of relates to Antoinette's question too. So it's like you might have this scenario where you're expecting something to be delivered in-app, but it just doesn't exist. So like then the inside reps are like, well, where's my guide for this? Like those things are going to come up. So you have to cover all your variables of like, all right, here's all of our triggers as to like what AskElephant's going to do. We have HubSpot already. what are all the things that are going to be delivered to the people that are working these deals, working these tickets. That needs to be created, and we need to understand when they are triggered, because as Zach mentioned, it's not always like somebody's not going to go in and mention the Twin Force Pro Drive 75 horsepower by name every time. There's going to be variables that we need to understand on A, the AskElephant side, and B, the trigger on the Supered side, so we know when to trigger that if they're not always using that specific nomenclature. Zach, we'll come to you for your question. Antoinette had a question on the training guide. It was in the tickets. The training guide is created through any either documentation that you currently have about training or processes, or it can be created based on your processes or trainings that need to happen. And then they are created within the Supered app and then delivered that way. And that can be anything from a training guide to a troubleshooting guide to quality control issues, whatever those conversations may have that need to provide that context on the inside. I think Zach had also chimed in articles, yeah. Zach Hushin. Zach Hushin, by the way, he's the Rochester HubSpot User Group leader, and I think you guys have a Hug event coming up in 2 weeks, something like that. You're muted. It's his first time using a virtual meeting. You're still muted.
Zach, it's going to be on the bottom left of your screen. There'll be a little microphone looking thing.
Do you have a question or a comment? I don't know why you don't have yours. Okay. Yes. We'll let Andrea ask her question while you type yours.
Okay, so this, do you have other contract manufacturers that are going through the process to receive a CMMC score? And if so, have you found that they have deferred from using this type of software because of those regulations that the government is now requiring when you deal with DoD contracts and that kind of thing? I guess traceability, IP, like all of that kind of thing. And this is all very intriguing. It's just, is this stored like cloud-based, the data that's there? Since it's connected with HubSpot, is it on the AskElephant site? Is it something that can be downloaded and then protected on a secured server?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Andrea, this is a question that I have been asked as well, and I will refer to James on the AskElephant side from a security standpoint. I doubt that James is CMMC like proficient, but maybe you could just speak to the security and storage standards, James.
Yeah, I am not CMC or whatever it was called proficient, but I can tell you that we do have some like segregation of storage on a few things. So for one, anything we push to HubSpot, we push to your servers, all that stuff is your data. You own all of it, right? Anything you run in a call recording is still your data. You own it. We have contracts in place. None of the LLMs that we use will learn or absorb any of the data. So I don't know how technical I will get here, but essentially when we send a call out to an LLM, we are pulling it in, it's analyzing the data, and then immediately taking nothing with it. We do store the recordings and the like outputs from stuff when you're accessing AskElephant and you're seeing all of it there. Those are stored locally in the US. It's actually in Salt Lake City, Utah. And I don't know all the specifics on the security credentials there. I can tell you we're SOC 2 and HIPAA compliant, and we do have a couple folks who do government contracts,
Okay.
but I couldn't speak to more than that.
No, that helps explain it. Thank you.
And then on the HubSpot side, I don't know if I've sent you the Trust Center stuff on the HubSpot side or how CMMC friendly that is. I do know that they are also SOC 2, and I think they're even maybe like a SOC 3 now or something, compliant, and you can be HIPAA compliant on HubSpot out of the box. It's not HIPAA compliant. So that would be probably a deeper discussion, but hopefully that helps at least the general.
No, absolutely. And you did send me the Trust Center. I actually get an email from them on a regular basis, the part of HubSpot that's talking about the more security type questions. But that definitely helps. Thank you.
Yep. And Zach wanted, oh yeah, we can hear you now.
I don't know, I still don't have a microphone button, but I just enabled the space bar to unmute, so that somehow works. So we'll figure it out. What's up, James? Good to see you again, bud. Cool session today. I was multitasking a little bit, so I apologize if I missed this part, but I wanted to go back to like getting the inputs into this process.
That's the easiest part.
Right? So is it like literally just hit like audio recorder on your phone and just take any audio file and throw it in there?
Yeah, so open up the AskElephant app and start a new meeting. That's all. Start the new recording, and it takes everything. You can add your recipients either at that time or after. One of the things that we also tested, I think at lunch during inbound maybe, was being able to record if you didn't have service. So as long as you're logged into the app, you can still record that meeting even if you don't have service. And then once you do have service, that would upload to the cloud.
Okay. So could like, let's say that you, and I love AskElephant. It's cool tool. What if you didn't have it? What could you just take any audio file and kind of, or are there other tools that would come into play that you could use if you didn't have a subscription, let's say?
For this overall process, I am not aware of one that does everything that this does.
Yeah.
So theoretically, you could take the notes, put them into HubSpot Note Taker, or use the HubSpot Note Taker to take notes and do some things from that. What that doesn't do is parse the notes or understand some of those other guardrails that are added out of the box. Like, I don't know of a way to customize Breeze to do that type of thing. Like
Gotcha.
Meeting confidence, for example. If you go into a meeting and it's a sales meeting and there's a discussion about equipment or a new contract or new part that someone's going to produce, just because it's mentioned doesn't mean a deal needs to be created for that. There should be a guardrail in place to say, well, how much of this did they discuss? And was this a serious conversation? So that guardrail is like, all right, there's 80% confidence that this is something where we should create a deal. I don't know of a way to do that with Breeze and workflows at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe incorporating with like the external Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT is possible, but not 100% sure.
Okay. Do you see anything coming into play with HubSpot's like meetings beta, where it's like recording calls, kind of like an Ask? I mean, it's very much in its infancy.
Yeah.
It's just scratching the surface with that. Or I thought there was a beta too with like for iOS for in-person meetings, right?
Yeah. We actually had some conversation internally about this. I'm going to use my analogy for my internal conversation. Yeah. So I explained the Breeze Note Taker like a toaster oven that's on your counter, and AskElephant is like a full stove, right? I'm not going to make a homemade lasagna in a toaster oven. Like, it does the same thing technically, but I'm going to use a real oven to make my homemade lasagna. It just does more things. It's more stable. It's just more capable of all these things.
Yep. Okay.
So what the future holds, nobody knows. But
I was just, asking you to look in your crystal ball a little bit. I mean, obviously, solutions like AskElephant and Super and all these other, apps that are out there that are in the ecosystem exist for a good reason. They are kick-ass and they do things really well, and that's why they're successful at what they do. So I was just again looking at just all options and kind of trying to understand a little bit better. But I think it's really awesome, and I was excited to be there to watch you win. So congrats again.
We got it on a recording, Zach. Your cheer.
No, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I gotta see that.
If I could interject and elaborate a little bit on what Josh was saying too, first of all, the iOS app that is currently in beta for the Breeze Note Taker does not have a lot of the same core features. One of the things that they mention in it is that it removes the recording component after this transcript is generated, whereas this solution would maintain that if there's anything where you need to reference that at any point. It also doesn't seem to have the same ability to parse and interact with the HubSpot data as AskElephant. But then you also have to think like, this is something that is currently in beta on the HubSpot side, whereas AskElephant is live and running like today.
Per usual, you guys know your shit pretty well. So I love it.
Other questions, comments, discussion points? I think we still have, most people are still here. There's got to be more questions. One of the other questions that was brought up during the pitch was like, what if someone's like, no, I don't want you to record? You're like in a two-party consent state, and they're like, no, you just can't do it. And I think Woody from AskElephant gave the suggestion to just like have that rep then go out to their car and essentially at that time reiterate everything that was said in the meeting. So it's not perfect, like coaching on a rep going back to their car and just kind of spewing out what they thought they heard isn't as good as watching or listening to the actual meeting. But it makes sense. And the sooner that you can log that, the better. And it's still not requiring that rep to go sit on a laptop, type out their notes, create a deal record, create maybe 2 deal records, create a ticket record. Like it's still doing all of that stuff for them, even if they're going out to their car afterwards and just regurgitating the meeting. Any other questions or comments? All right, well, we can hang out here as long as everyone wants. We have 12 more minutes, so at least some of us will hang out, but everyone else is welcome to leave. James, appreciate you joining. Zach and Vicky, awesome job. And Michaela, thanks for organizing everything. Zach, when is your hug?
Right now, it's scheduled for October 1st, which I believe is a Wednesday. I got to check to see how the stats are doing on this one. You know, it's funny. Sometimes you nail it with a topic, and other times, like, you just totally bomb. And this one, I have a feeling people are already like inundated with inbound 25 recaps and updates, and there's a ton of great content that's online for that too. So we'll see. But you know, we got some HubSpot swag to give away, and if anyone's in Rochester and they want to hang out, come over to Fairport Brewing, and I'll buy you your first beer. Or Shirley Temple, or whatever you're into.
Gosh, I remember a hug. This must have been pre-COVID that I did at Zach's former employer's facility. It just happened to fall on a day where I was there in Rochester. I think Zach and maybe 2 other people attended. It was like some of these hugs, they just...
Yeah. I still got you beat, though. I ordered a whole sheet pizza for a hug and ended up taking the whole thing home by myself. I was the only one that showed up. So snowstorms, Rochester, you know, they get you.
Oh, it happens.
Yep. So, but it's all good. We're just trying to promote the learning, you know, and get people to meet in person. I think I love the virtual ones. They're great and convenient, but I miss people.
Yeah, same.
Do you have this like running with any clients or anybody who's kind of started to like beta test this process, or have you guys just really just kind of designed the concept, you know, took the money and went to Vegas and lost it all?
Right now, we're just our own test case, but working on building it out for some people. It's still pretty new. I think when was the pitch? The pitch was the week before Inbound. And
yeah, it was like the 28th or something.
Yeah, and then we were away for 2 weeks at Inbound and then FabTech. So now just getting back into the swing of things and working on deploying it.
It's cool. I can't wait to see more.
Yeah. Likewise. I can't believe how many people, I guess most of these people that are still on here are us. Is anyone sticking around because they have a question that they don't want to ask in front of a lot of other people? All right. I think we can call it.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Great seeing everybody.
Yeah, likewise.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye now.